guys have a seat.
Let's do it by the images. Yeah, so it makes sense. Does anyone else get covered by this? Here, one more chair.
Yes, yeah. So as we got to this point, I assume the close group, which is still here, are really interesting to hearing this discussion. So the last one for today is going to be about clicks to cash maximizing ad monetization. And for that, I will let the ladies and gentlemen introduce themselves. So please welcome them. So we've got four. I think you can maybe
this one?
share this one. Yes.
So we have also one. No, this one is kind of not really.
Yeah, I guess it's works.
It is just kind of quiet.
Can we share this one?
Yeah, of course.
No.
All right.
Alright, that one works.
Okay, cool. Well, everyone, welcome to the last session of the day, or of the conference, actually. Before we go into intros of this amazing panel, I just want to share some facts which you may or may not know. So, as it turns out, I was surprised to find out the gaming industry generates more revenue per year than films, music, and books combined. And within the gaming industry, mobile games are about 50%, right? So the biggest chunk. And within gaming, ad monetization is just slightly bigger than in-app purchases. That means ad monetization is the biggest revenue driver in all of entertainment worldwide. And that's what we're here to discuss for 1 hour. So hope you got your thinking caps on, because we got some experts on the panel, and we're gonna try to go a little deeper than maybe people normally go in these discussions, and we're gonna try to avoid just talking about the cliches. That said, guys, let's go one by one, and everyone please just do a short little intro.
You don't want to start?
Oh yeah, no. Okay, I'll start. I kind of forgot about myself. My name is Jure. I run what we call strategic initiatives at ZBT, which means I do a broad range of product strategy and strategic partnerships. One of the things I do is monetization strategy for our app, which means I'm very interested in monetization. I'm not, however, someone who actively manages ad monetization for a game. So I'm just very interested in ad mon in general. It's something I need to understand, something that truly fascinates me, and that's why I'm very happy to be here moderating this panel.
Yeah, I go next, and sorry for doubling for the ones who were in the previous panel. So this is Eski, and I do individual consulting in product and game monetization. My background is engineering. I guess doesn't really matter. My background is engineering and product, but I'm in monetization scape for like more than 6-7 years now, and yeah, excited to be here. So what? Shall we use
Do we just go without mics, guys?
I think for the recording, we probably need to do the mics.
Are you recording this?
Is it green left now?
Oh, is it?
Yes, recording.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That doesn't really work.
Let's do it again. And now?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So, hi. I'm glad that I see you here, Berlin, Friday. And my name is Kate, and I'm head of Edmond and Burny Games. I'm in marketing for about 8 years, and half of that time handling ad monetization. So I have strong experience to work with Edmond mediation, role play mediation, and Max, obviously. This is the biggest part of this time, Max mediation. And I'm really happy that we can discuss, and I think it will be no bullshit discussion about ad monetization today.
Thank you, Kate. I'm Tezcan. I work for Kolibri Games as a senior admin manager, and I've been in the industry for the last 4 years. Previously, I was working in the Turkish publisher Rolik as an admin manager as well. And I'm also super happy about the topics that we are going to discuss, because when we had the pre-workout of this panel with you. It was quite nice, so I'm happy to see you here on the Friday afternoon.
Hi, I'm Patrick McSteen. I'm also mostly an indie consultant around monetization. I've been a VP of monetization for a company in Finland called QHub, and built or rebuilt like 50 tech stacks for games, another 30 over the last like 8 or 9 years for apps. And I'm a guy that started in an innovation lab that learned how the ecosystem got built, and I kind of approach AdMon from reverse engineering what the advertisers are willing to pay for and try and build intelligently like that way. So that's how I approach stuff, and then I've had hands-on keyboards for all that at the same time with all the tools that we know and love and hate.
The mic situation, yes. All right. No, this is. Is it really this one? Thank you. We'll figure it out with the mics. But we got it on.
Let's change.
You're not sure.
So this is the action that you are.
We're doing some mic ops. So, ad ops is a super quickly evolving things, or sorry, ad monetization, and I already subconsciously said ad ops because the first thing I want to discuss is, yeah, we used to talk about ad operations. Not really a thing anymore, is it? This day, ad ops is, admon is more closer to just saying, you know, monetization. It's closer to game design. It's closer to thinking about how do we build monetization into the games, not just how we optimize waterfalls. And that said, I would like to start the discussion with exactly the topic of what are some opportunities or best practices of bringing in AdMon as part of the game design, and I want to start it off by handing it over to Kate, because I know you got some nice insights.
I think I shall start this and give opportunity to everyone to say more about this topic, but the best practice is not to think about while creating ads, while you create an ad, you completely rely on ad revenue. You need to think more than as a business person than a developer, because after integrating ads in your app, you have plenty of questions. You start researching, you start thinking, but before you just create an app, think about mechanics, think about all game design, and do completely nothing in most of cases regarding integrating ads into your game design as natural as possible. So first of all, you need to think about balancing ad pressure and and user experience to reach stable retention. And how to before you need to do this before you release this game, to research, to think about ad frequency, to think about user segmentation, different ad experience for users from different media sources. You even need to control and know about the fact that exist different templates of skippability. You need to think about how much time people will need to spend in your ads. Will they like it, or it will only frustrate these people? So balance user experience and control it at pressure, and do this before, just on the start. If you really have intention to create an app that will completely rely on ad revenue, because usually it's not that case.
I can maybe give an example. A very recent example that I was talking with a developer who are trying to soft launch a new game, and it's mainly US, and they were mainly trying to they want retention as 55% without ads, and then they implemented ads in a way, and retention dropped to 20%, and they were like, okay guys, what we gonna do? It's this business is not gonna work. And we go into deep and try to see, okay, what is the tolerance of users to ad, and how we can personalize the ad experience for users, and then we managed to make it 40, 45 back to day one retention. So I 100% agree on a way that like segmentation, especially and like ad design in the game design should be all enhanced and work together.
You don't need to pretend that you don't have ads in your app. You need to like think about how people will play with them together and play for long.
Before we move on, because I see Patrick will say something to say, but before we move on, I just want to ask you, you just gave us an example of, let's say, the wrong approach. What would have been the right approach in that scenario to avoid going through this retention disaster?
Yeah, I would say designing the flow together with the ads from the first place. So not design the game itself, but like adding ads and designing in a way that users are, like players are interacting with the ads, especially for the rewarded ads flow. It's very crucial not to add them after, but like adding them during the planning. Otherwise, it will be an additional value for the player, but maybe not that crucial. So they can still play the game without touching the ads, if we like the rewarded ads, if we say so. If we think about game design, ads as a part of game design, but if we add it later, then it will be some additional features that users might interact with, but maybe not really interesting for them that much. So.
But you're saying done right, guys. I'm just giving up.
Yeah.
Whatever. But you're saying if done right, ads and especially rewarded ads can actually be engaging for users.
Of course.
Patrick, I know you got something to say about that.
Yes, totally agree. So the first thing is, why didn't those guys do a 90-10 test?
Yeah.
Maybe they would have only crashed 10% with their mistake. So like, that's the first thing. So data-driven, iterative learning, A/B tests, always, right? So if they do that, then they learn a hard lesson, but it's not as expensive. Like they didn't piss off all their users, just only a little fraction of them. So like that's the first thing. Manage your risk with like a slight test, and then if it looks good, go to 25%. And if that looks good, go to 100. Like kind of a fundamental thing. And many game designers know how to do exactly this, and they do it all the time with features. Use those same skill sets to optimize your features and learn what people like and don't like. Do the same shit with your ads. That's all. Use the same skill set. Employ the stuff you already know how to do in this space. Because like that's how you make enough money to like stay in business. You need a really engaging, sticky game, but you need people to pay you. And just what frustrates me so much is if these guys would use what they already really know how to do and are good at, and apply the same tools in this adjacent, like next door part of their world, they'd stay out of trouble and they'd do a lot better. Okay, makes me crazy, you can tell.
Yeah, as it should. And Tizcan, you started but you used to be in hyper-casual, now working on idle games. Both super fascinating and kind of specific when it comes to monetization between ads and EAP. Could you talk a little bit about that and the specific of those two genres to help us understand a bit more about like the practical implementation of what we were all just talking about?
Yeah, sure. So basically, for first 2 years of my career, I was in hyper casual. Almost 99.5% of the revenue was coming from ads. And when I started working at Kolibri Games, it was like a big difference for me at the beginning. 50% of ad revenue, 50% of IAP. But by the time I got more experience with the idle games, I came to realize that actually ads are not that different than the IAP. Product people, especially product people, they tend to think that IAP is completely different than the ad experience, but actually, if you think of it from this perspective, in the United States, let's say that the average minimum wage is $12, and 1 minute is equivalent to $0.2, which is equivalent to $200 eCPM. And 1 minute is also like an average ad watch. So actually, and in a day zero user in the United States, their average eCPM could be $200. So if you think of it from this perspective, people are working for 1 hour, and 1 minute of it is actually equivalent to one ad watch. And not exactly the same, but actually watching an ad is also something they are paying for. It is not something that they are getting for free. So we should not differentiate the ad experience than the IAP experience. Of course, spending real money is psychologically a different behavior than watching an ad, but at the end of the day, in the real world, it is kind of equivalent to the same thing. And when we come to the idle games, the 50-50 revenue split, what I am trying to implement and suggest to my product team, product people, is that in the early game first-time user experience, we need to create a game experience around ads. We should not make people think so much about spending money. We should just give them rewards, keep them engaged in the game, keep them coming back to the game. Then after like maybe day 7, day 14, we can slightly give them like skip it or something like small purchases. And especially this is like the user side of engagement side of things, but also for our portfolio, I can say that especially if you're on max mediation, you are kind of doing UA a lot on a plugin. And early LTV is crucial for the ROAS campaigns in a plugin. So actually increasing early LTV is much easier or much more possible if you increase the early LTV. Yes, we can do it by eCPM, but unfortunately the current trends in the market where everything is going on bidder, we do not have much of an impact on the eCPMs on the waterfall. So when we think of it from this perspective, optimizing the ad experience, optimizing the user engagement in the early games is going to impact the user scale, the game scale, and then we will acquire more users and generate more money at the end of the day.
So basically you're suggesting to front load the user journey with ads and then kind of ease it out as the user transitions into possibly becoming a purchaser.
Yes, I think so, because in the early game, the eCPM on day 0 is almost like two times than the eCPM on day 7. So basically, watching one ad on day 0, day 1 is kind of equivalent to watching 2 ads on day 7 or something like that. But there's a game that I'm playing for the last 6 months. I am still playing that game every day just to watch an ad from a Lucky Wheel placement. It is a hybrid casual puzzle game. I just love this game, and the only reason I go back to this game just to get the rewards from the Lucky Wheel. No matter what the rewards are, it is just fascinating for me to just spend 3 minutes, get the rewards, and play a couple of levels, and just come back the other day.
You and I need to talk about spinner wheels when we're done here. I got an idea you're gonna love.
Sure.
Yeah. So completely opposite of what you just said, and like I believe that that's a very valuable approach. I think it's a brilliant idea. There's services out there that cater to this idea that the ads will cannibalize IAP. And I might be jumping ahead on our list here, but like this is a big pushback thing that, actually, I know you see this all the time, like I do too. No, I don't want to show ads, or I don't want to get too many rewards because like then it'll mess up my IAP. 4 or 5% of people will make a purchase, 95% will not, okay? So it's kind of a false objection. Somebody just doesn't want to deal with this other stuff. It's not a real reason not to do it. It's a fear-based thing, and it's a great excuse that's hard to push back on. So there's a couple of services out there, out of like kind of half Finland, half Turkey actually, where they do some AI stuff in the background, and they just decide who's never going to make a purchase, and then they tell you who you can show more ads to. And you know, they churn when they churn, and they just kind of right size predicted longevity with more ads to just like optimize. And like that's not a bad idea, but that idea gains traction where it gains traction because people believe that ads are subordinate and less valuable than IAP. Now, sure, one ad for a penny is, you need 100 of those to get a 99-cent purchase, but that math doesn't make sense when 95% of your users will never purchase. it doesn't equate, it's a false equivalency. So people kind of do it the other way. But he's exactly right. A few ads early on are vastly more valuable. So it's just like this weird contradiction that is floating around out there.
Isn't it?
Yeah, I guess we're a little bit jumping around the topics,
Sorry.
but I think
Okay.
I will add, there could be also a way to test this in a way that, for instance, users came in and then you start with, it's risky, but like with very small group of users, you can try increasing the ad density in a certain level and then try to see how they react to it, like other than trying to, like, this is one approach and this can be another approach if they are really tolerant to it or not. And then split your users in different groups and then try showing them different ad densities can be also a way to do it. Yeah, I was going to ask you actually, Tessa, showing ads in the first couple days more, isn't it risky though?
Is it risky to destroy the balancing or the game economy?
Plus like the retentions.
I mean, if it's a rewarded ad and if it is meaningful for users to engage more with your game, and if it is actually kind of grinded into the experience, I think the other way around.
So you're talking about simply about opt-in ads.
Yeah,
not like
rewarded
forced-
ads, yeah.
Okay, so not forced ads like interstitials.
Yeah.
'Cause I also took your point to mean to do a bit more interstitials and these sort of forced impressions.
Oh yeah, like for my experience, in my current role, we only have rewarded ads. We actually kind of deprecated interstitials for a chunk of users in the beginning of October. So we tried interstitials and it didn't work out well for retention. But we might have done wrong targeting actually. So we didn't have time from the product side to work on the correct segmentation because we started showing interstitial after day one. So actually it was quite early, to be honest.
I can add and maybe add some advice to this one. We've made very deep research trying to understand what frustrates people more. The interstitials itself. Oh, how easy that
I was so waiting for you to realize it.
is. Okay.
Oh, that's awesome.
Useless. Wasted.
One of those works great.
Interstitial itself, or maybe how easy they can go through it. And we found that if we use in our mediation for those cohort of people, let it be, only those networks who has not aggressive skip templates, they are absolutely okay with interstitial. So they just easily click, close it, and go through. If it wouldn't interrupt the process of play. So for example, we maybe all you see this like very creative monetization point called like when you are playing at some point you go to Telegram or WhatsApp to answer someone, come back to your level and see interstitial. Like it frustrates and it interrupts, it like knockout these people from game. And if you avoid these methods and leave only interstitials that are easily to skip, that are not from 3 parts of displays and you try to catch, cross and forget what you was playing. So they can add your revenue and don't have impact on retention. They can be with it. Just easily go through. But it's still a little bit increasing your revenue.
To a lighter template,
Yes.
less aggressive
You
template.
you can add with lighter template and you definitely will increase.
Very few networks.
But if you increase, for example, it's easily to increase your revenue to increase the CPMs.
Yeah.
So maybe not quantity.
And you mentioned focusing on this for a certain segment of players, right? This ad experience you're talking about, keep interstitials but make sure they're skippable. You said a certain segment of
Yeah.
players will be okay with that. And the reason I bring it up is this is a great segue into a very big topic that actually all of you guys already touched on, and that is user segmentation. Right? Not all users will behave the same way. And user segmentation happens on two different levels. It can be on the product level, so different ad journeys actually game behaves differently, or on the mediation level. And Kate, I guess that's what you were talking about now, was the sort of segmentation of mediation. Please, could you
Yeah,
explain
I'm
more?
more close to mediation level, segmentation and mediation level, and it's also like correlates to what you are saying about that we all face with bidding, and we all think that we can't control it because bidding provides us like fair eCPMs based on user level. So it's your decision to believe in this or not, or maybe to check this and use bid floors and segment your traffic. And there are different kinds. From the easiest way, for example, when we segment just geo segmentation. So like you have different waterfalls or different setup of mediation stack for US, for APAC, for Europe region. And you research how it's going on the CPM level, and you understand that you can like add pressure on all this mediation auction and set bid floor for this separate region. Or you can like try to deal with the situation when you see in your reporting that, for example, ECPM for new users are okay, but then after 8th day, it rapidly drops and it's not like trend, something happens. How you will deal with this problem? With bid floor segmentation, if you segment, like if you divide all your impressions to, for example, 3 separate baskets, and set bid floor on each basket, you at least have a tool to affect your bidding ocean, because you definitely give all your networks a condition that, for example, maybe someone is not so familiar with the bid floor, but you just simply ask your networks to give you impression not lower than this price. So like you have some tools to affect even on bidding, and we use segmentation from one side to keep our CPM high, and even affect on retention in positive way, because if you ask for higher SPM, you need to admit that you will decrease the quantity of impressions, but you need to control, balance this way that you will get higher revenue still, but you will show less interstitials or like usually interstitials, but with the reward tax you can't joke with quantity. You need to show all the time. So like bid floor mediation, in mediation bid floor segmentation, that is what we use, and we balance and keep strong our CPM and manage to get the better ROASes, better LTV, and it can boost it, really, it can bring you growth.
So if I understand correctly, just check if I got it right, you're saying that when you set the bid floors, you run the risk that sometimes the ad impression will simply not fill.
There are some networks that are definitely giving you price based on user experience. But I have certain mediation networks in my stack. I can say you that it's only 2 of them who completely ignore what I want. Completely ignore my bid floor. Like you want 20, okay, you can want 20. I will even show or not show on this price that we give, because we know that we can't pay more for this user. Only 2. All other networks are lazy. You need to test it and to understand which real ECPM they can give you if you give them this option.
To add to that, I guess, like the setup that we were also chatting with Kat for a long time yesterday, the setup they have is like the most complicated ad setup I have ever heard. So they do a lot of segmentations and and it requires a lot of and it requires a lot of work. So it's like kind of risk side of it. Like it's a lot of work. You have a lot of ad units that you need to manage the waterfall for all of them, like floors and everything. So it's not like two-person job. So just to add that, like it's a lot
hard
of
for
complexity.
one monetization manager, and without adopts, definitely can do this. Just maybe think about this, give them an idea, but you need people to manage all this.
Okay, so when people talk about, you know, oh, header bidding is getting really great, and we don't need ad ops anymore,
We
you're
can't
saying that's
control
not the
this,
case.
we will all lose our jobs. No.
Yeah, still.
Yeah.
Okay, so segmentation. In game design, game designers segment users in different journeys all the time. So use that same skill set around monetization stuff. Find people's preferences. Exact same skill set, just apply it to a user experience around ads. To make this just like a little simpler, let's talk about the segment of people who are willing to look at a rewarded video. There's a reward that they get. They're buying it with arguably a crappy 45 seconds of experience that might be hard to close, right? Like, I hate those things as a player and a consumer, but nobody does that twice that doesn't agree for the price they're paying, right? So there's people that are just willing to do it. I don't like it, but I'm not everybody. I'm just in a different group. There are what I would call ad grinders that will do amazing amounts of repetitive tasks in games to like collect all of the gems to eventually get the sword to kill the dragon on level 7 or something, right? And some people do that same repetitive, work very hard behavior, and they just get conditioned to do it in big games like, you know, Clash of Clans and all that stuff. Same thing with rewarded video. They just want the item that's the reward. So those are people who already said yes. There should be no discussion about how many ads they can see, so long as it doesn't crash or overheat your tech stack, right? So when you can define a group of people that want to do that transaction, and when you can make that group bigger by adding more rewards, right? Like that's where you do the work. And those are really good CPM ads. That's 10 to 15 bucks per thousand, 1 or 1.5 pennies per watch. And interstitials are usually less than that, maybe, I don't know, 7 to 10 bucks, depending on so it's fertile ground and people already want to make that trade. So we should do that. If you're playing around with rewards, you can triple the reward for someone who once in a while will do a rewarded video. Because give them the stuff that has no real world value to get them to do it. And you don't have to treat every rewarded video user the same. The guy that grinds and looks at 10 ads a day because that's all you can serve them, give them enough to like keep their gameplay pace in line. Don't give them more than you need to. But it's totally okay to triple the reward for someone that only watches like 1 ad per 3 sessions. Get them to watch 1 ad per session, triple the revenue on that group of users, right? And like jack up their rewards. Like why wouldn't you do that? So that kind of segmentation thinking around rewarded, which is optional anyway. They won't do it if they don't want to. That's like money that's easy to make. And so long as your CPMs don't crash because the high volume segment is doing it too much but like not giving value back to the advertisers, you're okay. So just make sure you watch the fill rate on that super high value, super high volume group is. And so long as the fill rate stays pretty solid, pretty high, 80, 90% maybe, you're good. The leading indicator of a big revenue crash is fill rate goes down, CPM goes down. If you look at your dashboard once a day, you're good, like 3 seconds. And then you know that very valuable group of people is not like overheating that part of your engine. And like that's a simple one everybody can do. Not crazy complex with these ridiculous tools that we have to deal with day to day. Everybody can do that one.
guys, segmentation, we're saying works, gotta do it, gotta understand the user, but then a problem can arise. You know, you're saying users well, some of them love grinding rewarded video ads.
Well, small amount, but
Small
valuable.
amount, okay, but a very valuable segment, right? Well, what if the ad absolutely sucks? What if it's horrible as hell? What if it's not 45 seconds, but 75 seconds? And this brings us to a moment, painful topic, time to roll up our sleeves,
Start
guys.
crying immediately.
This is the real topic right now in AdMon, and that's ad quality.
That's quite fun.
Yeah, it's, but I think we all agree it's a problem. Let's start by discussing what exactly the problems are. This gentleman.
Yeah, so it was around this time last year when a very hot topic happened in the world, which was concerning a lot of people around the world. Israel and Palestine issue popped up in October. So I was just one day working in the office and I suddenly started receiving complaints about my community managers, and they were sharing some video screenshots, and it was an ad that was including horrible footages of blood, killing people, guns, and all of that. And it was coming from Israel Ministry of Defense. So, and it was from a very big partner. It was not like a DSP that we integrated as a custom ad adapter or something like that. It was like one of the big players in the market. And it actually took us 2 days to completely make sure that we are not showing those ads, because we thought that we blocked the ads on the dashboard. We reported to the account manager, and we thought everything was sure. But the other day we started receiving, because it was coming from another advertising URL. So basically, if you even think about from this scale, from a very big partner, we are a very big corporation, and this is a very big issue. We were not able to block it in a couple of hours. We just had to deal with it. It was like the main concern for 2 days. Why I told you this? Because actually this is kind of showing how things can get out of control, and unfortunately we don't have any tools that will block the ads immediately. We don't have an internal assistant. So as the only admin manager of the company, I had to deal with all of this by myself. Communication on both sides, and the community needs to communicate this to the players and all of that. So this was like the biggest scale of how things can get the worst, but also on day-to-day basis, the ads don't give the rewards. The ads just come with audio, even though the device is on mute. Device is at the lowest, at the zero volume. Even in these conditions, ads can give audio, and this can disturb user experience. So every day I'm almost reporting something to the networks. I'm trying to block some ads. I'm trying to reproduce these ads myself, and sometimes at least like once a week I find problematic ads while playing our game myself. So actually, this is how we are dealing with this internally. But the problem is that we wanted to just understand if we want to get some external tools to improve our ad quality. For us, it was quite expensive. It was costing almost as hiring someone just to monitor all these ad quality.
Sometimes less.
So hiring someone is less, yeah. So when we thought about from this perspective, yes, an automation, a tool is helpful, but if it is going to cost me that much, why would I just go with a tool rather than just hiring a junior, educating that junior, and giving them the old ad quality tasks while using their time for something valuable as well. So this is how we are in a position right now, but I'm curious to know if the technology to block these low ad quality ads or unexpected behaviors are going to be controlled in the future, basically.
My first thought on that is like how the ecosystem works. Google doesn't care how bad the ad quality is. They care about how much the ads cost and how much revenue they make. They're economically rational that way. They only care when their customers get mad. Now, we're customers as publishers, and if they mess up our user experience, like we get mad at them, and eventually they do something to like kind of balance things out. But as you clearly pointed out, that horse is out of the barn, to use a lame American expression, and we got to go chase the horse. There's no keeping it in the barn because they don't really police their stuff. They don't spend money on it. Like they do a little, they do the minimum, and like that's Google, the big powerhouse. There are a bunch of other folks who say yes to stuff they know that is terrible user experience, so they have ads so they can get their rev share. There are people who are not scrupulous. There are SDKs that I won't name publicly, but I would never, ever, ever use again because they just take anything. So you kind of got to think about who your partners are. And if you have a good tool, you can usually squash stuff after the fact pretty quick. But somebody has to mine that store. Somebody has to do it. And it sucks. The first app I really, really worked on had a report an ad feature. And I would say never allow people to report ads. Never. Because when they report the ad, they think you chose what ad they see, and we don't. It all comes from the other partners, right? But you got to respond to that. And like, if somebody says something like that in your store ratings, like of course you have a community manager deal with that right away.
70%.
Yeah, but just don't ever, for God's sakes, do a reported ad because you're opening up this massive can of worms. And you can't really fix it, you can just clean it up after. But if you go with bigger name partners, you have a lot less likelihood to face really big problems.
Peter, I feel like you got something to add on this.
I'm listening and, okay, never report an ad. It's hard to manage. Agree absolutely. But
Well, we report and complain about ads. Don't let your users complain to you about an ad. That's what I'm saying.
That's okay.
Don't give them that feature option.
What I can say that if you are dealing with all this stuff alone, like you will fail, definitely, because behind the curtains of handling review in our company, there is a chain of people, and now I'm adding one more, because we need support manager who will handle this review immediately and collect all details regarding the issue. QA engineer who will deal with data, internal data regarding this issue. Then admin manager or admin QA who will deal with networks, who will block, who will try to investigate. But still, we are struggling between two lines. From one side, we can use tools. Of course, we all know there is now one popular tool, but it's very, in fact, it's not allowed to use this tool from the side of networks, because you are trying to block their ads, and you sign with them documents like contracts or click OK on their terms, where it is clearly written that you wouldn't do any invalid clicks or invalid actions with their ads that are cached, that win the auction and are cached and waiting to show. So you in fact can't do this, can't use this tool, but you use this tool because you don't have any options to block. Because if you really have a bad review, negative review, you will try best to find who shows this ad. Then you will go to the network, spend lots of time, and then you will have again this negative review. Because you need not just say this network that please block this shit. Control that they really do this. And lots of cases like auto redirects when you completely have no data. You can't understand what is going on, you can't get this creative ID, even this is hard. So we really have problems and not clear decision. And 70% of complaints are about ads. And all we can do is manage this regularly and check, even if we know that we set these conditions how to show these ads for this network. Check once a month, play test once a week, Yes, and write to this vendor. So I definitely need to find someone who deal with this. But I think no one still.
So a lot of manual work, basically,
Lots
is
of,
what
yeah.
you're saying. You just gotta watch
You
it.
literally
It's
sometimes
not
need to
such
find between 200 ads, need to find this one. Just sitting and watching it.
What I can add, there is a majority of this that we can react. So
Yeah.
we can't act
It's very
before.
important for people.
So for the ad quality stuff that we just talked about, we are just reacting. We saw something and we are reacting. What we can act maybe is making sure that like templates are how we want to. Because for instance, I don't know like how you think about this, but we tend to think that interstitials, for instance, skippable in 5 seconds by default, and we tend to think that okay, this is the default. You go talk to network that you added like months ago, and you learn that their default is 15 seconds, and another one is 10 seconds. And for instance, the biggest one have like 5 plus 3 plus 2, which requires like click, click, click that you are trying to close the ads. So understanding the like what are the templates for each network and trying to find your the limits of the templates, and then communicating this with networks is something we can act. Not sure if they're gonna follow this or not all the time, but
If
this
you
is
check every time this, you shouldn't definitely forget and check this once a year, because like there are so many cases. For example, you can find lots of negative reviews, networks that is for years with you. And suddenly happens that they are just testing you at a new skippable template on you. So now this inter contains of 4 parts. And like without asking you, maybe you don't want to be like this in this beta, in this perfect beta. So you always, unfortunately, or maybe it's good, but you need to handle this on weekly basis. So,
an
happy Friday, but happy and quality Friday.
And it sounds like it's just very important to always keep talking to all the ad networks. And
To
really
networks,
being
and
contact.
very important, even if you can't, in fact, we are like in charge which ads we show, in fact, because we have an option to block some categories. We have this option to filter, so we are in charge. So if you show political, they can complain because you can block political, but you didn't do this, maybe not because you want money. So please explain people.
especially now.
Yeah.
It's the nuclear
So
option.
in fact,
I can't
this-
use your network because you show so much crap.
Yeah.
So you turn that off, your account manager, their numbers go down, someone yells at them about that, and like you get real attention. But it's hard to turn off the network because we need the damn thing. We're kind of getting close to time. Would you like me to tell the ultimate story of ad quality consequence, or should we save it for another day?
No, I definitely want you to tell your crazy ass story. I do want to say we did start a little bit later, so I think we're good on time.
Okay.
Which means later on, Patrick.
All right. So
That's gonna be fun.
these guys know. I'm like, this is a little out there. I'll tell you like the nice version of the story. Should we tell everyone? And they're like, oh my God, yes. So first app, US Cellular. This is a cell phone carrier, Fortune 500 company, old, dull, conservative. So we built this app that showed 100 ads a day to a user, and you got $5 off your cell phone bill. US Cellular branded. Now, US Cellular got really, really mad if there was a cable company ad that ever showed up, because that was a competitor. Now, it wasn't AT&T, the competitor phone company, that they got mad about. That's a direct competitor, right? It was this thing called DirecTV that they owned. Like, the consumers don't care, and my company was not in the cable TV business, so like, what's the big deal? They just were that sensitive about it. And these are the C-suite guys up on level 7 of this huge building block near the airport in Chicago.
You're saying ultimate corporate suit guys.
Absolutely. So we had a itty-bitty guy who invented some methodology to show ads on a lock screen, like light up your phone, custom user experience with an interstitial in it. And I inherited this guy as the product owner, and I inherited his tech stack. And unbeknownst to me, he added in some real shady ad supply. Now, this is like 2 years into working together. And up on the C-suite, and I know this because my friend worked on that office and like heard it. The chief revenue officer, the head sales guy for this whole cell phone carrier, screams, "Charlie, why the hell are you showing my customers porn?" Because he saw a porn ad on his US Cellular app, on his US Cellular phone. Now, I will not say what type of porn it was, it's a category, and it's yucky. But he yelled down the hall to the CMO, whose product team eventually I worked on. And he did it as the guy, as the CEO of the whole company, whose granddad started the thing, like walked by. So what happened? 2 days later, we gave a credit for 9 months, $45 to every US Cellular customer who had that app. 150,000 people, a lot of money. Closed it down. Thank you for participating with the experiment. You get $5 off for the next 9 months. That's it. 1 month later, half of our team gets laid off. Like the people did completely different innovation work to like help the company make money on the ways, gone. Myself and one other guy were left. That was it. The only reason we survived that catastrophe was there was an unbranded version of the thing that was making 50 cents a day, and they were going to need some time to sell it. So like that's what ad quality can do in corporate settings. Porn. Charlie, why are you selling my customers porn?
And literally the product got killed and almost
2 days.
everyone got laid
2
off
days.
because of one ad that got missed, right? And
Yeah.
you're saying
That was seven people who were wonderfully talented at other kinds of work.
Yeah, so guys, don't integrate shady networks. Okay, keep to the big ones. We don't want porn in there.
Yeah, really.
Also, we're saying there's really you can only react to that.
Yeah, sadly.
Because you're not gonna know. Well, guys, I think what we said so far, to kind of summarize, because we've been talking for a while, is you gotta start designing the ads when you start designing the game. You gotta segment your audience, both from a product perspective with user journeys and in the mediation perspective. And you have to somehow control for ad quality, which is unfortunately still a lot of manual work, because even though tools exist, the pricing for now does not match the reality. And what all this says is it's hard. It's damn hard. We touched on game design, we touched on ad ops, we touched on user segmentation, and we touched on real manual work that you just gotta do every day, every week. And now for the last topic of the day, and let's not get too angry about this, because I know we're passionate on it on this panel. That sounds to me like a lot of resources. What does that look like inside of a games company? How do you see that structured on a team level? And how does that collaboration work in the sense of admin versus game design versus support versus people running the reviews on the stores?
I can start.
Yeah.
Myself is, I guess, extraordinary case because I joined the teams and act like part of the team and not really like very, very big teams. It's mainly entrepreneurs. For me, I guess like the ad monetization, actually monetization hand in hand with everything, especially products and engineers, of course. But as we said, like QA is the biggest part, but it's not only doing ad anymore, as we discussed, like you need to act like a product manager to be like valuable as an admin. So otherwise it's not really working anymore, I would say. But I guess you guys can provide more on this.
Yeah, I would echo that completely. But like one of the important parts are like scale, right? So early on, you do a little bit of admin work, not too much, and then you move on and you build and you grow. When you get to have a lot of users, it's quite different. The pacing of how much admin design you do and how you set up a stack that's basically no touch at first. Like, it all kind of goes with your scale, right? So you do a little bit of admin work here and there. You do a little bit of work around the user experience of ads. And as you get bigger, you just like keep going back and refreshing that. And you right size your effort for your scale until you're big enough where you really need somebody with like these kinds of skill sets who can keep everybody else paying attention to the stuff that they need to. And as your scale gets bigger, because you two work for companies that have like wow scale, then you just need to have the senior people understand that it takes a couple of bodies, it takes hard to find expertise, it takes a long time to teach people and share what we know. But if you don't do that, you're driving a car without insurance. Things are going to break, things are going to crash. So you de-risk your business by putting enough resources to it. And if you right size along the way, then you don't get frustrated, you don't waste your time, you don't do it wrong, and give up. But there is overhead, there is cost, there's a lot of stuff you got to maintain and make the engineers go do just to keep the system working. But if you keep that pacing, relatively balanced, it's not bad. The worst thing is to be the only person when there should be 3 of you. Like no one needs that job, right? No one likes that. And then that's what it looks like when it's wrong, like when the pacing's off.
So, Kate, we'd love to hear from you as someone in this company.
Yeah, like you live this pain.
So he was selling the fantasy night.
I know what
It's
it
really
is
like.
instead of 3 people. The main thing that I see is that lots of companies that completely rely on ads still know very small, have completely like this attitude that they hate ads but they love money. They hate us, but they need money. Where is their revenue? So it frustrates. It completely demotivates all these admin people if they need to ask all the time, need to ask, need to prove that keeping healthy admin part of your game is important, is critical. So if you always need to ask to update this SDK, to maintain it, it's fresh, if you always need to ask to do some additional stuff you think will work, will bring more revenue, and you always need to wait for quarter adding new partner because they can't find time to add adapter. They were not planning this in their plan releases. It demotivates, and one advice that I can give to people who are in this situation, ask all your colleagues more often if they love money. Because I see this very often in different with different publishers.
So you're saying it's a struggle to even get.
It's a struggle even to get updates.
Guys, I think we're on time. We cut it. So to end on a positive note, I will give a special question to Tezcan. Sorry, man, we're departing to end on a positive note. Tezcan, if you could have a magic tool that could give you anything you wanted in your admin life, what would it be?
So basically we are the money makers, let's say, and the unit price of an ad is what we call eCPM. But we have some ideas how eCPM is calculated. Like if it is an IAP user, it is higher. If it's from the United States, blah, blah. Like we have some idea, we have some knowledge, but I have never seen an algorithm, a code that actually calculates the eCPM value, and I never see how it joins the auction and all of that. What I would want to do is kind of like an internal tool where I would know the eCPM value of the user before even the ad request happens, so that I can request an ad from a specific waterfall where I just maybe make it super dense, make the most out of that waterfall, so that I will maybe have 50 waterfalls, but if I actually know where to request an ad, I will maybe just call an ad from a specific waterfall. So basically some internal tool that will give me the eCPM value of my user prior to even requesting an ad. I think it will make us a huge amount of money.
You can build that.
Yeah.
You can build that.
Come
How?
on, we can need to go. Need to go.
Not here today, too big, but you can build that.
How?
Perfect for the next panel. But thank you. Wonderful answer from someone who clearly thinks about ECP and thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
Wonderful panel. Thank you, audience, for listening. Yeah?
Yeah, just finish. Yeah?
Finish.
Just finish.
Just, no, just the closing ceremony from YouTube.
Of course.
Okay, so real quick.